Welcome back, everyone, to Bounce Off, the #1 SlamBall podcast worldwide. I am joined by a graduate from Florida A&M University. I've fumbled the first bit, but we'll keep going. A former Jimmy Jazz employee, but most importantly, SlamBall's first overall pick for the Lava, Bryce Moragne. How are you doing today, Bryce?
I'm good, Sam. Doing real good. Appreciate you having me on the show today.
Thank you very much for coming on. I want to immediately apologize because I've been pronouncing your name wrong all season, and I think that's something I should address off the top, because I also know that you're someone who has very kindly checked out most of the content I've been producing. So I think straight away I just need to apologize for the mispronunciations from day one.
It's all good. I've been dealing with it my whole life. You wouldn't be the first person to mispronounce my name and just call me something crazy, so it's all good.
Okay, awesome. I slipped in the Jimmy Jazz employee thing because I'm a big shoe guy. I think you are as well, just based on your experiences at Florida A&M. What was it like, that experience selling shoes for Jimmy Jazz? Is that something you ever think about, or is that just totally removed from your brain now?
That was kind of like totally removed from my brain. That was like the first real job that I had, and I did that like the summer of, it was like my sophomore year, junior year, just to, just make some quick money while I was waiting for school and stuff to start back up. So that was long gone.
Okay, awesome. I couldn't let that slip. We're obviously here to talk about your time with SlamBall. You're also a very accomplished collegiate basketball player as well. Where did that initial love for basketball come from? Who put a ball in your hands? Where did that experience come from?
Well, I would definitely say my dad was the first person to kind of like introduce me to the game, but it was really my granddad who really, stuck beside me and kind of made sure that, I was following the right steps. He was the one taking me to AAU practice, AAU camps, like all these tournaments, pretty much everywhere. And that's because most of the time my parents were working and he was retired at the time. And he's a former collegiate athlete himself. He went to Savannah State University, which is another HBCU similar to FAMU. So he was kind of the one that was beside me the whole way. And even now, he never misses a game. He hasn't missed a SlamBall game, hasn't missed a college game. Like, he's always tuned in somehow. So that's kind of how I got there.
Is he the kind of supportive parental figure? Does he always send his thoughts on how you've played right after? Do you get that text? You're like,
Yeah, I usually get that from my dad. See, my dad is more of the criticizing.
right.
But my granddad, he's kind of more supportive. Like, okay, you did this good. He doesn't really point out the negatives in my game. But my dad is kind of like devil's advocate. Like, all right, look, you dropped 30, but you could have did this better, this better, this better. And, it's kind of good to have both of them at the same time. Somebody that kind of tells me I was doing good, and somebody also tell me what I need to do better. So it was kind of good to have both of them.
Okay, you mentioned we talked about Florida A&M a little bit, but you mentioned HBCU, which is a thing that I only know about through looking at college basketball and stuff like that, because it's not a thing we have in Scotland. So for anyone watching who has no idea what an HBCU is, it's historically black colleges and universities. What did it mean for you going to a school like that as your main choice for college? What was that experience like for you?
It was an amazing experience. Both of my parents actually went to the same school, so they both went to Florida A&M. And just being around people, who have the same interests as you, people that look just like you, that want to be very successful in life, was just an amazing experience. And just the culture, everything that I would do with my family, it kind of resonated. And the same thing would happen when I went to the university. So our acronyms are actually FAMU, and it actually we spell it out FAMULY to spell family. So everything about the school in itself, we kind of just thought of it as a family. Like, all my professors were cool. You don't have the big, large classes like 200, 300 people in one class. All my classes, I think the biggest class I had was maybe 50 people. So, the connection that you have with your professor is a lot more personal. And just the students, it's not as large of a student body. So you pretty much know everybody on campus. So if I have a brother right here, I have a sister to my left. So it's all good.
And when it came to going from that situation to then playing on ESPN, and it was mentioned multiple times over the course of the season that you are from an HBCU background. What did it mean to represent that school on international broadcast and on national streaming services with ESPN?
Yeah, it definitely means a lot. HBCUs are kind of shadowed in a way that we don't get the type of representation that we truly deserve. There's a lot of great athletes, a lot of great business men and women that come from HBCUs. And I think we don't really have the voice, to kind of show that, you can go to HBCU and just be as successful as somebody who went to Duke or Kentucky and things like that. And even in college, when we were playing on ESPN, we kind of took pride in that. Like, okay, look, this is an ESPN game, a chance for us to represent our university, and we're playing against, I don't know, USC, people on the West Coast. So this is a great opportunity, just let people know that FAMU is here, great university, great athletes, great everything. So ultimately amazing.
And during your time at FAMU, you said to the guys at Slamcast podcast that you were seen as the guy on pretty much every team that you played for, whether it be high school or AAU or college, whatever it might be. And even within the city you grew up in, you were the guy when it came to basketball. Where does that reputation come from for you specifically? Is it purely based on what you do on the court, or is it how personable you are outside of the sport?
I think it's kind of a mixture of both. Everything that I ever had growing up, just from high school, college, and even SlamBall, I had to work for. So I think a lot of that just comes from people just looking at the determination that I had to want to be great. And then that kind of resonated with them, like, okay, this is a guy who really truly loves what he does. He perfects his craft. And then every day, he just wants to be the best that he can be. So I think that's truly where it comes from. And just being around people in the city and just in the SlamBall world, basketball world, just meeting great people, making great connections, meeting new friends and stuff like that. So that's all good.
Does having that reputation as the guy that people are looking at to succeed, does that put a certain level of expectations and pressure on you whenever you go into something different or new?
Not necessarily. Like I've never been the type of person to, you know, be pressured and kind of just think about that in the back of my head. I just really push through it. Also, to answer your question, ultimately, no, that stuff really doesn't affect me. I mean, it kind of affected me a little bit in slam ball, which is different. I mean, you could probably understand why just by being, of course, in college and high school, I was that guy, but slam ball, per Mason, I know we're going to get into it, I was the guy. So it was kind of a different level of pressure compared to slam ball and then what I did all in the past.
Okay, when it comes to slam ball, and like you said before, you were the guy within your city as well. How were you received back home for taking this opportunity and going and doing this sport? Were they super supportive, or is it one of those things where like that's not basketball, I don't care?
Oh no, it was super, super supportive. And like even before this, before slam ball came about, I was still doing like basketball tournaments, like pro runs and stuff here and there. I was even doing like some YouTube stuff. So there are a lot of people like, why are you not still playing basketball? Like, what are you doing? So then when I got the slam ball opportunity, obviously it'd been gone for so long. And when I posted it, I had everybody like, bro, this is so dope. I used to watch this back in the day. And it really was a lot of love, but I really didn't understand how much love that the people back in my city had for me until honestly, like 3, 4 days ago. Obviously, we got back from Vegas 2 weeks ago, and this was my first time, kind of going back to the gyms and stuff that I used to work out in, and everybody was just showing major love. Like, hey, bro, we watched you. Like, you put on for the city, you put on for family, you put on for your family. So that was just really amazing and truly a blessing. Just come back and know that people had my back, and there wasn't anybody that was downplaying the sport that I was doing.
Awesome. That's really good to hear, especially from like one of the fans that's way to invest in this thing, to hear that other people are still like, yeah, we respect anyone that's doing this, because there is, I think the league as a whole has this sort of underdog mentality of like, we've never been treated seriously, or there's these things that we want to prove that we are a legitimate sport. And it's cool to hear that you've got people coming up to you being like, "Ma, you're my favorite player," or like, "I'm really glad that you went and did this." That's cool to hear.
Yeah, it was definitely amazing.
When it comes to that reputation, that expectation of the guy within your city, the guy within basketball for where you come from, did that kind of force you to have to stay close to home when it came to choosing a college, or was that one of those, like you say, your mom and dad both went to FAMU? Was that the main factor for going there?
Yeah, the main factor was, well, let me back up first because I
Yeah,
don't want anybody to watch this podcast and be like the guy. So when I
yeah,
say yeah. So obviously, when I say the guy from my city, I'm not saying I was the best player to ever come to my city or anything like that. But just in the basketball aspect, of just knowing people and, like I mentioned earlier, just being determined to be the best player that I can be. Everybody knew that I was that guy. Now, high school, that's different. Like I was probably the second best player in my class, personally, I believe, in my class. And just out of high school, just college, I kind of just worked my way up to being the best. So I just wanted to clear
that's
that up
fine.
before.
Yeah.
And then you asked about going to FAMU. So
Yeah.
that was more so just because my parents went there. And cool story, I love telling the story all the time. I didn't receive a scholarship offer from FAMU. I was originally a walk-on. Out of high school, I had a couple of D2 offers. I had some JUCO offers, but my parents are educators, so my dad's like an AP, my mom's kind of like the AP as well. So, and my granddad was like a dean of a school, so they weren't really big on the JUCO to college route. They were kind of like, look, just go to a four-year university, get your degree. And I was kind of hurt a little bit because I did want to, go to a JUCO, and I feel even to this day, like if I went to a junior college, I would have went to a way bigger Division I school. But ultimately, it worked out. I went there just to go to school for business, and actually got an opportunity, just go to open runs here and there. One of my old high school teammates, he actually got a scholarship, and he was 2 years ahead of me. He actually got a scholarship to go there, so he was always bringing me in the gym and things like that. And ultimately, it led to like me coming so many times that coach was like, "Okay, look, I'm gonna give you a shot." I went out there. I pretty much proved myself. So I made the team my freshman and sophomore year. Saw minimal minutes. Actually, my sophomore year I saw a little bit more minutes. My freshman year I didn't see as much, but by my junior year, I was pretty much starting. Started every single game during the season, and at the end of my junior year, I got a full ride scholarship. So they ended up paying for the end of my junior year, my senior year, and my grad year. So ultimately, it all worked out at the end of the day.
Awesome. And the school you went to became one that was endorsed by LeBron James. You received his logo on your kits, you received his shoes. And that sort of now followed you in your career where you've now got this nickname of Baby Braun. Is the origins just purely because FAMU had his gear, or did someone bestow that title on you at a specific point?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up, obviously LeBron was just my favorite player all time, hands down. So that's why I kind of wore 23 in high school. And I was lucky enough to get 23 in college, but I kind of didn't get the name Baby Bron until my grad year in college, and kind of like when I came back and I was starting to do some YouTube stuff and doing like some pro runs. And that name came about because from my senior year to my grad year, I was like, you know what? I've done pretty much everything I can do. I just want to get bigger. So I literally had a jump to where I went from like 185 pounds, and this was like over the span of 2 years, but it was like 185 pounds to like 220 pounds. So like I'm coming back, and guys are like, bro, what you been on, And I'm just kind of like bullying people on the court. Man, obviously just being LeBron or being a LeBron fan, I just kind of wanted to do some of the same things that he does on the court, be a great passer, be a great dunker, somewhat good shooter. And people just started calling me Baby Bron, Baby Bron. So when I came to SlamBall, I kind of wanted to have that same type of reputation, and not only with him sponsoring our school, it just kind of made everything gel right together. So I just wanted to kind of carry that on.
And you said in your player profile that people can see on YouTube, this was like a produced video package that SlamBall made for you to sort of give a little insight as to who you are. You said that you wanted to bring LeBron's mentality to the sport of SlamBall. What does his mentality mean to you, and what were you specifically looking to bring out on the court?
Just ultimately being the best player that I can be. And I know it's kind of cliche, but just being the best player that I can be, not really caring what outsiders have to say. And then just the leadership mentality. Kind of all my life, once I got into my senior year of high school, senior year of college, I kind of took on that leadership role. And I knew that being a leader, whatever team had the best leader or had some type of leadership role, was going to be a great team. And that's something that I wanted to carry over into SlamBall and whatever team that I was going to be on. And then obviously just being able to pack stats like be a great passer. I touched on be a great passer, be a great shooter, and just every aspect of the game of basketball that he's good in. I kind of wanted to implement that in SlamBall.
Okay, with a nickname like that, two elements to it. One of it is you're being called a baby, which not everyone would take kindly to. The other half
Right.
is you're immediately being compared to someone else that's come before you. Does having that sort of tag put on you in any way feel reductive, where you're like, right, I want to be known as Bryce Moragne. I don't want to be known as Baby Braun. Is that something that you maybe have a chip on your shoulder about, or is it just nice to be included in that conversation?
I honestly just think it's funny. I don't really think about it too much. If anybody compares themselves to the greatest player of any sport, I think that's cool in itself. So I really don't want to carry the Baby Brian. Like, hopefully SlamBall is going to be here long term. I don't want to carry Baby Brian all the way out until 20 years from now. Ultimately, the goal is to have somebody calling themselves Baby Bryce. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to, I think it's funny. It's cool to hear the commentators say it, and I kind of want my game to speak for that. So ultimately, I think it's cool, and I don't really care
You
too much
get to
about
year
it.
20, you're in your 40s, and they're still going, Baby Braun with a 3 point dunk. You're like, nah, I'm okay.
But nah, I'm good with that.
All right. So when you graduated from college, what was the thing that you went into? I know you had like a big adult job, but can you break it down to me exactly what you were doing and what you were involved in?
Yeah, so I was actually working for Nabisco. Well, I was working for Mondelez International, which is actually Nabisco. So if you know, they own pretty much they're the largest snacking company in the world. So they own Oreo, Chips Ahoy, Ritz crackers, like pretty much all your big snacks when you go down the aisle, they own that. So I was in a accelerated management program, which pretty much put me in 6 months of each managerial position within the corporation. And eventually by like, I think that was a 2 year program. By the time I was done, I would have like a great management position somewhere in the company. And it was just accelerated so I can see every single aspect of the company. And I was doing that, and I was in like my third rotation, and then I got the SlamBall call, and then that's when everything kind of shifted and changed.
So is that an opportunity you could still go back to and take, or is that a door that's closed now because you took this opportunity with SlamBall?
So at the time, it was an opportunity that I could. I mean, it was a door that I could still come back. Like I took a leave of absence
Right.
to actually come out there, so I didn't ultimately quit. I just told them like, look, I have the slam ball opportunity, get a chance to play sports again, be on TV. And they were all like, oh, we've never had anybody do this. Like this is so cool. So they were all behind me, like, yeah, just go and do it, like represent the company. And my goal was, I was gonna take a leave of absence, go play slam ball, and then come back and just finish working. And just based off of how successful that I was doing in slam ball, and how successful just the whole slam ball thing has been going. Once I came back, I kind of let them know, like, I won't be coming back to work. And that's because I knew that there would be a future in slam ball.
Is that something that, so the initial, I'm taking a leave of absence, I'm going to go and do this thing, that was supportive. When you came back and said, this is actually what I want to do full time, was there still like that positive feeling of that's great, good for you? Or were they sort of like, we've kept this position for you, man? What's going on?
Nah, it was definitely a level of support. My manager, I actually have two managers. They were definitely like, follow your dreams, chase your dreams. And they were actually following up and catching up on me while I was on TV. So it was good to just let them know, I'm not returning. It wasn't any type of, there was any type of adversity that I had to go through. So it was pretty smooth and they were really accepting of it.
Something I want to touch on from post, I think it's post college, but I'm questioning myself now. You
Mhm.
competed in the 2022 Dos Equis 3-on-3 national championship, but I couldn't find that much information about what you got involved in there. So talk to me about that experience, what you actually did as part of that championship, and how far you went.
Yeah, so that was actually like, if I had to list the coolest things I've ever done in the sports world, it would definitely go slam ball and then the 3-on-3 tournament. So ultimately, what it was, they put together each conference. You put together pretty much the best 3 or 4 players within your conference to go and compete, like FIBA rules 3-on-3 against all the other conferences in college basketball. So I actually got the opportunity to be on a team that was called HBC You Don't Want None, and ours actually combined two conferences. So it's the SWAC, which is my conference, and the MEAC, which was the old HBCU conference as well. So I was playing with a couple of the guys that I played against, and pretty much we went out there. We were in New Orleans, and this was during Final Four weekend. This is the Final Four weekend of last year's NCAA tournament. So all this is going on like right up the street from where everything's happening, and people were coming in watching. It kind of reminded me of slam ball a little bit. Like it was kind of new. A lot of people didn't know about it, but there were a lot of people coming and watching, and it was really cool. That was also broadcast on ESPN, so it was kind of just cool to do that. We started off slow. Uh, we started off getting beat pretty bad, and it was kind of like pool play, kind of like a tournament. So I think during pool play, we might have won like one game. So our seeding wasn't that good, like going into like the final tournament, but we ended up pulling the stretch where we won like 3 or 4 games in a row. And the way it works was like the further along you went in the tournament, the more money you made. So each time we won, I think the first time we won, each player might have got like $500. Then the next time we won, it was like 1,000. But I think the grand prize was like 30,000 for the team. So I ended up walking away with probably like $3,000 or $4,000, something like that. So that was my first real, I guess, professional contract in a sense, because I was getting paid to play basketball, and it wasn't like nothing, nothing restricting.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. And like I said, I played with a couple of guys, and they were really cool. Still keep in touch with those guys today.
Did that make you consider 3-on-3 as a possible opportunity, like as a career move? Because obviously there's now a lot more opportunities within that sporting world as well.
Yeah, there were a lot of international scouts there, and one of the guys who was on my team, he is from, I forgot what country he's from, but he was the main one putting in my ear like he played it before for his country. So after we played the 3-on-3, he was like, "Yeah, look, man, this is like a great opportunity. I think you should do it." And I was like, I don't really know. And plus, I had my job kind of already lined up, and that was before my job. So I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna just hold off. But at the time, I did consider it, but ultimately, I just end up going with my job and sticking with that.
Going with this instead. Okay. You also said to the guys at Slamcast that you do a little bit of acting. Was that a pre-SlamBall thing, or is that something that's come about because you've got a little bit more notoriety?
Yeah, that was a pre-SlamBall thing. So when I say acting, me and my girlfriend, we kind of have like a TikTok account, and this started up during the COVID pandemic, honestly. So we were kind of trapped in the house, and we were like, you know what, let's just give TikTok a shot. So we started doing it, like doing like these old skits of movies and stuff like that, and our following just blew up. So I think we have like over 1 million followers on TikTok now. So I just kind of started like being in the acting space, and I started getting like some modeling gigs here and there, like stuff in the city, nothing too major. And even like just on my own personal page, I'll just do like lifestyle stuff, or I might do skits here and there. So that's kind of where the acting and modeling stuff comes from.
Were you looking at things like that as, was that purely just serendipity because of COVID? You found something to do, or are you always looking at other marketing opportunities outside of sports?
I'm definitely always looking for different opportunities, but that just came about because of COVID.
Right.
And that's just, we were just like having fun, like, let's just have fun with it. But once we saw that our following was growing, we were kind of like, all right, we might need to take this a little bit more serious. So that kind of persuaded my decision a little bit to now. Once I came back, I was like, do I really want to work? Or, I kind of have this somewhat big platform. I've already have experience in acting and modeling, seeing some of the older SlamBall players like Whitney White, and there's a lot others I just can't think. Noah Ballou, who've done acting after their SlamBall career. I was like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and give it a shot. So I'm definitely looking for different opportunities in that world.
Okay, awesome. And my last question of like the pre-SlamBall stuff, I need to ask about the B chain that you've got around your neck that I've seen on broadcast so many times. Where did that come from? Who gave it to you? What's the story there?
This is just my jeweler, but ultimately I just wanted, I wanted some jewelry. I was just like, I've always just had like maybe one little gold chain or something. So I was like, you know what, let me invest and get myself some nice, something that represents me. So it's just a B with a crown on it because I'm the king. That's how I feel. So, but nothing really special about it. But I just wear it to let people, just represent myself and everything that I mean.
It's definitely eye-catching on broadcast for sure, because it was something I was like, whenever it would like pan over the bench, like there's Bryce. You can tell. Awesome.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I'm definitely glad it catches people's eyes.
good. Let's talk about getting into SlamBall itself. Who contacted you about being involved in the sport in the first place?
Whew, this is another cool story I love telling. So obviously, yeah, I was working my job, and this was like a normal day, and one of my old college teammates, the one I mentioned before, his name was Nasir Kaur. He ended up just putting something in our little group chat like SlamBall want me to come out there and play. And he's already big in like the YouTube basketball space, and doing his thing. So he put in the chat like SlamBall wants me to do this. They must think I'm crazy if I'm about to go out there. And I texted him, I was like, I'll do it. So once I texted him that, he was like, you for real? And I was like, yeah. So he ended up contacting Rob. They were already in contact with each other. He gave Rob my contact information, and literally like 30 minutes later, Rob gave me a call, and me and Rob sat on the phone for like 30, 40 minutes of him just giving me the breakdown of just everything SlamBall related. And after that, I went and sent it took me a minute actually. So we talked on the phone for 30, 40 minutes, and he told me like send me all your highlights and everything like that. And honestly, I didn't send anything to him for like a week. And that was mostly because I didn't think it was a hoax, but it just didn't seem legit. Like I knew it was a league. I knew I've been around. I watched it before, but it just didn't seem right. Like a sport to be going for so long, and now y'all want to come back. Y'all telling me to come all the way out to Vegas, which is all the way on the West Coast. Like that's a big risk that I had to take. And already knowing, I knew I was gonna have to leave my job. So I was like, I don't really want to. So I ended up messaging him back a week later, like, okay, here's all my highlights. I sent him everything that he asked about me. And at the end of it, I was like, you probably forgot who I was because it's been so long. And instantly he replied to my email like, Mr. Bryce, you must have me truly mistaken. I remember everything. And that from that point on, I was like, okay, this is legit. Rob is somebody that I can trust. And he's been my God throughout the whole process.
And then you obviously got involved in the Super 24, which I think is a big leap from someone that wasn't initially contacted about it at all to then all of a sudden you're part of like the elite group of 24 guys that's getting brought in. With that experience, did that feel like the first honor that you were being given by the sport? You're like, I'm being involved in this special thing.
Absolutely, because before I even got the Super 24 invitation, Rob was just constantly telling me like, there's a based off what you've shown me in your film and everything, there's a chance for you to be Super 24, and it was always like this big but you probably won't make it, and since you won't make it, you have to get your own flight out to Vegas. Like, there's some things that you won't have the opportunity to do. So I was like, I was cool about it, and I was already preparing myself. Like, I was looking up Vegas flights, like having to fly myself out there, but it was like right there when I lost hope of being Super 24, because I think this was maybe like a week before people were supposed to fly out for Super 24. I was like, yeah, I probably didn't make it. And then literally as soon as I lost hope, I got the call from Rob. He sent me pretty much everything I needed that I was gonna be Super 24. So that was truly a blessing. I really felt honored to just be a part of that. And from that point, I was like, all right, I really have to like step my game up and let them know, okay, y'all pick me for Super 24. So I gotta really come out and show up.
Okay, awesome. And we will talk about Mason's comments about your preseason later on, but from that and from things, just how connected you seem to be to the guys in the front office, was that a relationship that existed before preseason, or did you develop that relationship with the front office guys because of how well you performed in the training camps?
Um, I think the relationship that I had, like I obviously had some type of relationship with everybody in the front office, whether it was just like a hey and bye type of thing, but everybody knew who I was and I knew who everybody was. But I don't think that I truly got really close to them until how I started performing in Super 24 camp, and obviously just like being the first pick, that kind of just propelled everything. And then you could just see like the conversations me and Mason were having were starting to be a little bit more in depth, because obviously I had big shoes to fill. So we started having more in-depth conversations about everything, and Mike Tolan, just everybody in the front office. I was talking to them a lot more. So it was truly a good experience.
After the draft, obviously there's the now much talked about comment from Mason of you being the most complete SlamBall player they'd ever seen. What was your initial reaction to that comment? When did you first hear him say something like that?
Oh man, I mean, at first it was kind of mind blowing. Like, here's a guy who created this sport, and he's saying like, in my terms, like you're him. That's kind of what we say, you're him. So for him to say that was truly an honor and a blessing. But once again, like I knew it was going to be a big target on my back. But before he even mentioned it, just during Super 24 camp, and I don't know if you have questions about that, but during that whole camp process, my mindset was like, all right, I'm just trying to come out here, not be the worst player. If I'm the best player, great. And I think it was probably like the second week is when I really could start to tell that I was starting to separate myself, because I could see some of the players starting to come and ask me like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? And keep in mind, I had no trampoline experience at all. Like, I just posted a video. I don't know if you've seen on my
I saw
Instagram.
that earlier today, yeah.
I tried to do a front flip, and like I couldn't even front flip. So like here's a guy who had no experience, and now I have people who I thought were going to be really really good on the trampoline coming and asking me for advice, and they're actually telling me like, you like really good, right? And that's when I was like, okay, maybe I am really good. And I think Mason's comments came right after that, so it was truly just honoring.
It stacked up. Where did that immediate success come from, do you think? Were you putting in extra work with like Stan Fletcher, or was it just like something that came slightly naturally to you?
I think it just came slightly natural, like just being around Pat and definitely Stan, everybody who was helping, they kind of gave tips and pointers to, just elevate everything. And I listened to everything that they had to say, everything that every coach had to tell me. I kind of took it and implemented it. But ultimately, I think most of my success in Super 24 camp came from my confidence. And as well as anybody knows, like if you don't have confidence in yourself, like nothing's going to go well for you. But I had so much confidence, like I felt like I was on top of the world. Every coach had everything positive to say, and I really, really knew that I was going to be good. I can remember this really vividly. We were doing takeoffs. We had just started doing takeoffs. This might have been the second or third day of takeoffs. I did a takeoff and I did like a triple pump. I came up, I came down, I went back up and dunked it. And as soon as I finished dunking, I landed like on the baseline. And Coach Jelani was like, "Hey, you're gonna be a problem, right?" That's what he said to me. He said, "You're gonna be a problem." And I was like, "Dang, like this is truly crazy." So from that point on, I was like, "All right, let me just keep staying confident, but being humble at the same time, and trying to help other people." Then I was starting to try to help other people, because I wanted everybody to be great. Because at the end of the day, if I was just good and everybody else was bad, the league wouldn't be where it is today. So I was ultimately just trying to help a lot of guys, and do things like that.
Um, one last thing before we get into the season proper. What were your, because like I said from the off, you've been very kind in showing me support and saying that you've checked out all the content that we've put out. Um, and whenever I hear that, I say that's terrifying because I then realize that you guys are perceiving what I said. It'll have come out like a week before this one, but I just talked to Gage Smith last night, and he told me that in preseason they were putting my mob preview on the big screen and watching it together, and I was like, that's awful to hear. Like,
Yeah.
so if you checked out that stuff, I need to get your thoughts on my preseason conspiracy theory about the lava being like pre-created to be the social media team. Do you remember me saying that at all? And what were your
I do.
thoughts on that? Yeah.
I watch every single episode, and like I can every morning I was literally sitting, whether it was my Airbnb that we had, I would wake up like 5 or 6 o'clock, and I would just sit in bed like, all right, let me just tune into a podcast, like let me just listen to what this guy has to say. But as far as the conspiracy theory, that kind of just like I don't know how that panned out, with me getting drafted, and then we got Greg. And obviously, Fessy being a late addition to the sport, him and Greg kind of had some type of connection already. So, and that is from the social media world. So, him coming along, I know it looks like conspiracy,
Yeah.
but it kind of just worked out really good. But yeah, I mean, a lot of things that you were saying were pretty accurate for the most part about some players, but obviously, you didn't have that much information on guys, especially in SlamBall, the SlamBall sport, because all you were seeing was like stuff people were putting up on like mini posts here and there. So, but I think for the most part, everything was pretty good.
It was more just I look back on that and go, I mean, like you say, there was a reason I was saying it, but it was just a bit of fun. Anyway, that was preseason stuff. Um, the first thing I want to ask when it comes to the season proper and the first season of Slam Ball back is your injuries, because that became like a little bit of a talking point. So I'm right in saying it was an ankle injury initially, right?
That was the first one, yes.
That was the first one. Oh, that's a sentence in and of itself. So what caused that initial ankle injury for you?
Ultimately, this was like we started scrimmaging. So, we scrimmage against both teams, and we ended up scrimmaging against the Ozone. And I think I was going for like a backdoor lob or something, and the pass didn't come to me. And Vince from the Ozone. He was like right there in the middle of the tramp. And, Vince is a big guy, and playing basketball, we're just so accustomed to like being able to land on one foot and things like that. And I've been doing that all my life, like landing on one foot and being completely fine. And that's ultimately what happened. I end up jumping up super high. I didn't get the ball. So as I'm landing down, I was like, all right, I'm just going to land on one foot and try to like push myself away from Vince. But the trampoline was already caved in. So as soon as I landed with all that force coming down on one foot, my ankle completely not snapped, but I ended up tearing. I tore 3 ligaments in my ankle. It was pretty bad. I couldn't really put pressure on it. That was like the first major injury that I truly had. So from that point on, like the injuries kind of just kept like piling up on themselves. I was doing rehab. The training staff did a great job of like kind of propelling me back. But it's like each time that I came back, it was a new injury. Or like each time that I almost felt I was like 80, 85%, there was something else that was bothering me, because I ended up uh, getting a sprain in my AT joint in my shoulder. And that was actually my very first scrimmage back from my ankle injury. My AT sprain in my shoulder happened. So I had to sit out again. And then obviously the ankle injuries that happened like during the season and stuff like that. So the training staff really did a good job of, getting me to the point to where I could play, because during my first injury, I wasn't even supposed to play until like week 2. And I probably wasn't even going to make that just based off of my injuries that they saw. So the training staff did a great job of just making sure that I did everything that I could do to just be ready.
Like you say, you weren't even supposed to come back until week 2 with the initial injury, never mind any others that you suffered in training. You were back for weekend 1. Was that a you decision to sort of rush yourself back onto the court, or was that something that maybe you felt pressured from the league? Like you're the guy, not necessarily saying that someone told you we need you to play, but there's an element of you've been called the most complete player. You're the first overall pick. Did you feel like you had to rush yourself into that first weekend of action?
No, I don't feel like I had to. And even like people in the front office, like Mason, Stan, they were all telling me like, bro, you good. Like we need you here for the long time, not a short time. So when with them telling me that, I was like, yeah, I know, but I still wanted to be out there. So they weren't pressuring me at all to be out there. They were like, take your time, do everything that you can to get fully rehab. But what really made me want to come back out there once I got hurt, I'm sitting on the sideline and I'm just watching my team. And you touched on it a little bit, like the team was kind of built around me for me to kind of make plays for everybody. And I could just see them really, really struggling. And I'm like, there's no way that they're going to be out. Well, I had faith in them, obviously, but ultimately I knew that our best chance of winning was if I was on the court with them. So that's when I really was like, all right, I told the training staff, I told Joey, like, we really need to make this push to get me clear by the first week. And he was like, I don't know, man, it's not going to happen. But each week, I just got better and better. And I think a lot of that had to do with just mentally. People don't really understand how, like, when you go through an injury, your mind plays a huge factor. So I was already mentally telling myself, like, I'm good, I'm going to be okay. And I just had a positive mindset about everything. Every morning I'm waking up right after your podcast. I would go to the pool, do like some pool workouts. I would even play the podcast like in the pool. And that kind of helped me a little bit. And just ultimately, it got me prepared to where I could somewhat play on it the very first week.
Looking back on it now, after the first season's done, is there any part of you that thinks I should have just waited till week 2, or are you glad that you made that decision to come back as soon as possible?
Um, that's a tough one. I mean, part of me does wish that I kind of waited, and just because I wanted to be at 100%. Like, disclosure, I was nowhere near 100% this whole time during the season. Like, I might have been at like 90%, maybe 85, 90% during the season. So part of me is like, okay, I probably should have just waited it out, got fully recovered. But the other part of me is like, look, I didn't, the SlamBall period was short in itself. It was only 5 weeks. So I was like, look, I missed 1 week. That's 1 week of SlamBall that I'll never get back, and not knowing long term how long the sport was going to be here. So I was like, I really want to go out here and play to the best of my ability, injury or not. So that kind of was my decision making process right there.
So we talked team. There was an importance to come back to play for your guys. We've talked opportunity. This is like maybe a once in a lifetime. The thing I want to touch on, potentially, it was another motivating factor. You're propelled as the face of the league, whether you want to or not, whether you want that opportunity. And by missing a couple of games, you start to see guys like Gage Smith, Tony Crosby II, Ty McGee, Keith McGee. These guys start to get lifted up as, well, these guys are the faces, perhaps.
Right.
Was that something you were looking at as like, no, that's my position. That's what I want to be. I want to come back and prove that I'm on their level?
It was like a mixture of both. Like, I mean, I'm not the type person to hate. So like when I saw Gage starting to go off, Tony, Keith, Cujo, like those are all my guys. Like going into camp, like we've had good relationships. So I'm glad to see them winning at the end of the day. Like that's the biggest picture. But yes, there was a part of me that I was like, dang, that's supposed to be me. Like they supposed to be posting me right now. And I really don't care that much. Like I said, I'm just glad that everybody had the opportunity to just display their talent and show that they are great players. But there was a tiny bit of me that I was like, dang, bro, this kind of sucks that I'm hurt, and all the SlamBall Nation doesn't really understand how great of a player I could be. And I know, like you even mentioned it, like you were waiting to see me to my full potential and things like that. And I know you weren't the only one that was thinking that. So I was kind of bummed out about that, but ultimately I was really glad that everybody was getting their platform to showcase that they were great players.
You talked about your team and wanting to come back because part of the offense was based around you. Is that a fair assessment that, like, going into the season, you were a focal point of what the offense for the Lava was supposed to look like?
Yeah, so our offense that we ran towards the end of the season, even like the beginning of the season, was nothing compared to what the original plan was coming in. So our original plan, and this was like draft night, Coach Josh pulled me to the side and he said, all right, here's the plan. We're going to be a shooting team. We drafted guys who could shoot the ball, and they did. Like everybody that we drafted were great shooters. If not great, they were the best shooters that there were available at the time. So our plan was to be surrounded by outside shooters and having me just live inside the trampoline, backdoor lobs, putbacks, and things like that. So ultimately, yes, it was designed to kind of be surrounded by me. But after like the first or second scrimmage, and then plus me getting hurt, we knew that truly wasn't going to work. So then that's when we kind of started to get into the lab and critique our offense a little bit. And it kind of opened up the game for not only myself, but a lot of the guys like Jihad and Josh and Pax, Nate, really everybody on the team to really just learn about themselves. And then the injury happened, and everybody talks about it. Like that was probably one of the best things that could have happened for our team, because a lot of those guys wouldn't have been able to truly reach their maximum potential if I never got hurt. So
I know that I can't remember who it was had said it now, but was it Jihad got a offensive player of the week at one point? It was either him or Josh. One of the guys. It's really terrible. Got a player of the week, and someone from your team was like, he should be getting this every week. We're just not being able to showcase it enough. And I suppose you're right in saying that, like, with you going out as the focal point, it did mean that guys like Jihad and Josh and even Fessel to an extent can all get an opportunity to shine a little bit more, while also developing the offense your team had, because there was still that outside shooting. But something that the Lava did that I noticed no other teams were doing was sort of faking a three, and then it turns into a lob that no one else was really attempting. And that only comes around if you start in one position and then have to make that change going forward. So I suppose there are positives that come out of something like that, even if you're sitting on the sideline going, I should be catching those.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of positive, but that was like the one aspect of our original offense that we did keep, like the faking the shot and doing the backdoor lob. That was the one aspect that we actually did keep.
How did you coming back impact the team? Obviously, when you returned after injury, even if you weren't 100%, it was the same day that the Lava managed to get the first 2 wins of the season. You were obviously on a minutes restriction, but you're still part of that. Was there a concern that adding you back into the lineup would change how play was going, or because you still hadn't won a game, was it just let's put Bryce out there and see what happens?
I don't think there was really like it wasn't really the main thing. And I even told Coach Josh like my return, I was probably like 60%. But I just got so tired of just sitting and just watching us lose and lose. I'm like, all right, I just got to be out there just to give us a different look. And ultimately, I just told Coach Josh, I want to be out there to just scare teams. They didn't know how healthy I was. They knew nothing about just like the level of play that I was going to bring to the game. So we wanted to kind of just put myself out there to intimidate them, quote unquote. And once I came back, I ended up playing handler. Like originally, I'm a gunner, so I was supposed to be playing on the wing the entire time. So from that point on, I played handler, and I think that kind of helped us out a little bit. Just me being able to play handler, distribute the ball, and now I consider myself a handler. Like I don't want to play gunner anymore. I'm truly sold on being a handler. But yeah, that was really it, just to give teams a different look. And you could even, I forgot what was the first game I came back.
Rumble,
But
I
there were
think.
guys, it might have been Rumble, but there were guys even saying, like, I think this might have been like the third or fourth quarter. Coach Whitney was like, bro, he's a decoy. He's a decoy. He's not doing anything. And that's ultimately what we wanted, just for myself to be a decoy, to just open it up for everybody else.
For that initial return back, Coach Kirsch was on commentary from the Mob, and he was pointing out that you looked a little bit nervous in the air on the tramps, making plays. Was that accurate to say that you come back from all these injuries, there was a little bit of nerves?
Yes, it was very accurate. Before that game, for like 2 days, maybe even 3 days straight, I stayed after for practice. And it was kind of, you're a journalist, so you know about writer's block. It was kind of like a jumper's block that I had, to where like I couldn't jump from the top tramp. And when I was in midair, something was just preventing me from getting all the way to the rim, like, and even landing. So every time that I went, the very first day I came back, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it mentally. Physically, I could do it, but mentally, I couldn't. So me and Pat spent hours just like trying. I went like 30, 40 times, and ultimately I was able to do it. But yeah, just even coming back in the game, now there's a stopper in play. Now I don't want to jump up and re-injure myself. So I was definitely taking a lot of precautions, but just being on the minutes restriction too, there were kind of other restrictions I had. I kind of told the training staff I'm not going to do any takeoffs or anything like that. And that was something that I did previous during my very first ankle injury during training camp. Once I came back, I think I told them like I won't get in the trampoline at all. So I played on like just the perimeter. Then the next game I played, I couldn't do takeoffs. I can only do like bounce downs and stuff. So, but yeah, hit Coach Kirsch, who amazing coach. I have all the most respect for him. Those were very, very accurate comments.
Did that change as the season went on? Because obviously you return around about week 3, the Lava make it to the playoffs, make it to the semifinals. Did your comfort level change as you got more experience out there, or postseason are you still a little bit like, I'm a little bit nervous about going back into those tramps?
Yeah, I was still a little nervous just throughout it all, but ultimately what it came down to was, like I said, I was playing the handler position. So I was playing behind Pax, I was playing behind Nate at the time. So I was like a third handler. And the offense that we had initially set up, it was kind of meant for the first option to be the handler go and do the takeoff. That was like the very first option off the screen. If the handler didn't have the takeoff, then that's been going to the lob for Josh or the stack cut for Jahad. But the very first option, which we had every single time, was the takeoff for the handler. And I was just observing the game, and Coach Josh was just getting mad, like, Pax and Nate, y'all not taking off. So when I got in, I was like, all right, let me just try to take off. So I did it like one game, and that was like the only time I did it. And then from that point on, I was like, okay, I can do this a lot. So then once I started to take off, then it became a lot more easier for me to distribute the ball to Josh and to Jahad, because all the stoppers thought I was going to take off every single time. So it was really good for me to start doing that.
What was Josh like, Coach Josh Carlson, like as a coach? Because he seems very even keeled, very mellow. And then when you, I suppose, when you have a run of games where you're losing by single digits, it's come down to the wire. He seems to be getting more and more frustrated with things. How was he as a presence, and then how was he at teaching you the game?
Coach Josh is a tremendous coach. I have all love for Coach Carlson. Um, I knew Coach Josh was going to be a good coach because prior to or during training camp, there were a lot of coaches that were just, giving me pointers and just trying to help me out. But this was all before they knew the lineup of who was going to be who was going to have the first pick. Like, they didn't know the lineup of the draft. So once that started to come out, I could kind of see some of the coaches not talking to me as much. And Coach Carlson, and we as players, we didn't know who had the first pick. We didn't know who had any of the draft picks. So Coach Carlson started talking to me a little bit more, and we had some type of relationship, but it wasn't as much um, to the degree as it was like towards the end of training camp. So he started talking to me a lot more. And then once I actually found out that he had the first pick, I kind of was going to relax a little bit. Like, all right, I got the first pick. Coach Josh has kind of already told me that I'm pretty much going to get picked up. But it was the combine that we had to where I knew he was going to be a good coach, because I was kind of cruising, like not trying to do anything too spectacular, not trying to showboat. We were doing a lot of takeoffs, a lot of backdoor cuts, and I was kind of just laying the ball in, like dropping it in. And he was like, no, like pick it up. You need to pick it up and really show like why you deserve to be the number one pick. So that kind of showed me how good of a coach he was going to be and how he was going to stay on the guys. And that kind of resonated with me. But on top of that, his love for the game, he truly loves SlamBall. He loves us as players, and he truly wanted to do everything in his power to just make sure that we were going to be the best. So there was a period where I think we were off for like 3 or 4 days. It might have been a holiday or something. And he sent us workout videos like, look, guys, here's the videos I'm doing. If y'all want to do them, come out and do them. And also he would come, him and Coach Dion would come to our pool, do pool workouts and stuff. So everything that he wanted to do was just really SlamBall related. And a lot of people don't know, he was literally like either driving or flying back to work during the weekends and making it back right before practice. And that truly showed me like how much he cared about us and cared about just the Lava team as a whole. So great coach. I love him to death. And he actually just sent us a workout video today. So I'll probably be glad at today.
He's keeping on at you. Talking about the team, you were listed as team captain on the SlamBall page, and obviously that's a difficult position to be in when you're out injured for part of the season, especially when a quote from you during your time at FAMU: if your teammates don't respect you, it's going to be hard for them to trust you, and it's going to be hard for you to lead. Did you find it difficult to be a captain like presence when you weren't able to go out there and lead by example?
Not at all. And the reason I say that was because, like I mentioned earlier, my whole life I've always been a leader. Um, like, I'll just use college for example. Even though I wasn't the captain of my team my sophomore or junior year, I still played a leadership role. So even though I wasn't playing the bulk minutes my sophomore year, maybe like 10 minutes a game, I still was one of the main leaders on the court. So fast forward now, me being injured, just being on the sideline, it was kind of like the same thing. Even though I'm not out there, I see everything. I'm able to come to you in a respectable manner and like, hey, look, this is what you need to work on. And the guys they took it and they ran with it, and everybody was real respectful about it. And they just kind of respected me for just what I was doing while I wasn't there. Because a lot of guys, you see a lot of guys get injured and they start to point fingers like, oh, well, I might be injured because of you, or like you need to do this, but like just really down players' throats. And that was never the type of guy that I wanted to be. So I was always encouraging players and just letting them know like, y'all could really do this. And I think that helped us a lot.
Okay, awesome. As we're talking, prior to this conversation, the first ever SlamBall Anonymous Player poll came out, which I conducted here for Bounce Off. And as part of that poll, we asked the guys to talk about who might be overrated and who might be underrated as part of the league. Your name came up as the guy that people were looking at as the most overrated player. Start off, I just want to ask, how did hearing that make you feel?
Well, first, I have a question for you. I'm just curious. How many people said that? I'm just curious, just off top of your head.
I can't. It was more than just one person. It wasn't like a single person said that, but it wasn't. The majority of guys that I talked to, and I even said that in the video, the majority of guys pled the fifth and were like, I don't want to say anyone because everyone is going out there and putting the effort in. But multiple guys did mention you, and I think I put across quite well in that video why I think that perception comes from. And you've even hinted at it during this interview that some of that comes from the pedestal you were put on preseason. So how was it? How did you feel when you heard that news? Was it super surprising when that was a question that was being asked that your name came up?
Yeah, it wasn't surprising at all because I think even when you asked, like I was a part of the anonymous poll, like when I answered your question, the first thing I said was a lot of people were probably going to say I'm the most overrated player, and then I proceeded to give my answer to that after that. But it didn't surprise me at all, and just obviously the very first time being number one, hearing all of Mason's comments, you know, the amount of attention they were giving me on social media, ESPN, like every time I stepped on the court, oh, number one draft pick, number one draft pick. Like it was even a point where I got tired of hearing it only because I knew that I wasn't playing to the level that I needed to play. So it was like, you're saying this is the number one pick, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm not even doing what I need to do. So when I heard that, I was like, you know, it's cool, you know, that people think that about me, but I wasn't going to let that stir up anything. Ultimately, I still know I am the best player in the league, you know, at the end of the day, without injury, I'm the best player in the league. That's my personal opinion. So I wasn't going to let, you know, people say that he's overrated kind of come and deter me from that. And, you know, I talk about LeBron James a lot. LeBron James, the best player to ever play the game of basketball, yet he has probably the most haters ever. So it's like, it's kind of similar. You know, people are going to hate you even when you're good. So that's kind of how I thought about it. You know, hate, it comes with the territory at the end of the day.
Do you use it as a motivating factor? Like in hearing that, you're like, right, next season I'm going to be 100%. I'm going to come out there as a killer, or is it something you're just trying to avoid thinking about?
A mixture of both. Like, I definitely want to come out and prove everybody wrong. Like, all right, y'all thought I was overrated. I'm gonna really show y'all. Like, y'all shouldn't have said that. You know, and I even text Coach Josh. I was like, all right, look, when I come out next year putting up like Wilt Chamberlain numbers, here's the reason why. Because everybody's like talking real crazy. But ultimately, I don't really think about it too much because I know my game speaks for itself, and I know like it would be different if I never got hurt and people were saying that and I was trying to back it. Because if I never got hurt, I would have had every chance to really show the people. But since I got hurt, and I'm not trying to use the injury as an excuse or the injuries as an excuse, but it's obvious that, you know, if I was at 100%, a lot of more people would respect my game and things like that. So I don't really think about it.
Especially in it, like you say, it's a 5 week season and you got injured 2 weeks before it started at most type thing. To rush back and know that you're not in 100% condition, but because you want to be able to say you've played the sport. Because yes, it's a 2 year contract with ESPN, but no one knows what's going to happen to the player pool. In your defense, it's not a lot of time to get healthy, especially while you're also playing on those injuries. So one of the things you mentioned to the guys at Slamcast is, and this was preseason, and this was probably, I don't know if you spoke to them before or after you'd suffered the first injury, but something you mentioned to them is that one of your goals was to make sure people didn't see you at the first overall pick as a bust. Is that still something that you're concerned about after how the first season's gone?
Concern is an overstatement. I would just say that I still think about it. You know, I don't want to be considered a buzz, but am I concerned about it? Not at all, because even though I got hurt, I put up great numbers. Like I played 80% and I put up great numbers. So I'm not really concerned about being a buzz. And these are just the players that's saying that. Like I guarantee you ask anybody in the front office, you ask fans, like the majority of them are going to say, you know, I'm still that guy. So I don't really think about it too much. You know, it's all cool.
I would love to do a fan poll as well. I think that'd be very useful because I don't think the league didn't do it. I've just realized that. The league had said that they were hoping to do things like biggest dunk, biggest hit, biggest block of the year. And there was a lot of calls when I put that out there. There was a lot of people saying it should be fan voted on. And so, you know, that's all stuff that we should absolutely be doing. I thought my justification for doing the player poll was, first, it was a great opportunity for me to do something within SlamBall that is truly journalistic in its base, right? Is hearing from you guys what you think about the situation you've been through this year. It's also something the NBA gets the opportunity to do, and we should be treating SlamBall on the same level of that as sporting, but also from like a third party point of view. But I also think it can benefit the league for anyone that listens into it, particularly that last question about like player concerns, because I think that it's something that they can look at and say, right, this is, without any fear of repercussion, this is what these guys think, and we can move on with that going forward. What was your take on being part of something like an anonymous player poll for, I assume, the first time in your career of doing sports?
Yeah, that was my first time. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. to just give my feedback, and then when I listened in to hear all the other feedback that the guys gave in regards to the league. But just being able to voice my opinion, like let the league know, okay, this is what I like, this is what I didn't like. And even before you sent out the anonymous poll, like I said, I had great relationships with everybody in the office. So I was constantly going and talking to Rob, like, all right, look, the refs missed this or the refs
Right.
missed that. And there were a lot of times like the coaches were the only ones watching the film, but I was like, I want to watch, just so I can point out some things too. So I think it was really good that the poll came out.
Okay, awesome. And one last question about this past season, because we've obviously touched on all the largely stuff that I feel has come across quite
Oh,
negative. You're good, man. Is that something you need to take?
no, you're good. I just need to. I don't know if my screen is still here. I think I should still be here.
We're all good.
Boom.
Okay, quick interruption. When it comes to how the season went, we've obviously just touched on a lot of negative aspects, but I want to just straight up ask you, what do you think were the strengths that you were able to show off while you were part of SlamBall? And what are some positives that you brought to the game and that the game has given back to you?
Strengths. So this might not be visible to, I guess, fans or even to you, but I feel like one of the things that was really my strength was not being affected by the pressure or the contact that players were bringing. So like when I became a handler, there were part of the games like during the mob and even like the slashes where like I would be dribbling the ball and just like run people over. And like that was kind of a strength of mine because a lot of players, like once you got hit, you're fumbling the ball, like you're bouncing everywhere. And I thought that was a strength of mine, like playing the handler position, because once I got hit, I was still able to get our team and our offense. And I think another strength that came later on in the season was people to see how great of a passer that I truly am. Everybody was talking about how I was a well-rounded player, but even you talked about it. People thought that well-rounded just meant dominant. And yes, I could have been dominant, but ultimately what Mason was saying was I'm a well-rounded player, and I was the most well-rounded player at the time, and I still think I'm the most well-rounded player. So just being able to come out at the beginning of the season, show, okay, I can still dunk, I can score, because I was putting up like 26 and 23, and then at the end of the season showing like, okay, he's making some great passes. So I think those are two strengths that I was able to showcase, and I'm just glad I was able to do it.
When it comes to other things that I saw watching, and you put up a highlight tape on your Instagram this week as well. Freestyling, because I felt like there weren't that many guys who were freestyling to the extent that Stan Fletcher used to, with the classic side tramp freestyle into top tramp as a side cut. And that's something that whenever I was seeing clips of you, I was like, well, that's something he's doing that no one else is really doing to the same extent. They're doing it because they don't know where they're going to go with the play. You're doing it because you're attacking the stopper in a very deliberate manner. And that's something
Yeah.
that I don't think was pointed out enough either, just from my perspective. What about in terms of like positives that SlamBall has given to you in terms of like life experience or learning experiences and things that you've gone through after this first season?
So obviously first, I know we talked big on the injury, but like this injury, this is like this is the biggest injury, like biggest length of injury that I've ever had to go through. So this slam ball sport, or just the time I was there, has really showed me just like perseverance, just like overcoming adversity, even outside the injury, overcoming adversity with my team. Like we started off bad. So being a part of the league and being a part of this year's sport really um, helped me just connect back with myself and just overcome a few things, get back right spiritually to where I can really, just be the best mentally and physically. So it's obviously given me that opportunity. You talked about it a little bit, like brotherhood. Brotherhood is something that's truly, truly big in this sport. And I think that that's really big. And, a lot of the guys that my original house was actually 5050 Pearl Street. That was our street, our Airbnb name. And my original house was me, Tony Crosby, Cam Hollins, Justin Holmes, Debo, Christian Gray, and Mike Kalawale. That was my original, and Amir Smith. That was my original house. And from that, I think like four out of the seven of us went like first or second round, but none of us were on the same team. The only guys that were on the same team were Tony and Amir. Everybody else was on different teams. So even with us being on different teams, we would still have our team group chat or our old house group chat texting each other like, hey bro, good luck. Like, let's have fun. You know what I'm saying? It was still like it was still the level of competitiveness, but at the end of the day, it was all love. And even to this day, like I just got the phone with Tony, like we were actually talking about the overrated comments because he was on there too. And I talked to Cujo, and that's another reason why it didn't really bother me, because Cujo and Tony definitely are overrated. Like you can say as much as you want about me, like the players, but everybody knows Tony, Cujo, definitely not overrated at all. Really great players. But I talked to all those guys, And I think that's something that the league has really um, brought forth, just being able to have brothers by your side in this new league. Even that it's over, everybody's still in contact, everybody's still supporting each other in whatever it is that they're doing in life outside the sport.
I mean, Josh Shannon's clowning you for that flip video you posted. So
Oh yeah. He's always gonna clown. He always has something funny to say. But I talk to him a lot, and I really try and stay in touch with everybody.
just because you mentioned them both there, Michael Kolawole and Christian Gray being in your house, those are two guys who missed the majority of the season as well. Michael obviously just didn't even make it onto the floor with injuries. What was it like having them to lean on in terms of like talking about an experience that you guys are going through? That SlamBall already is a very niche experience that not everyone gets to have, but to be part of the first season and to be missing some of it due to injury, was that something that you guys were able to relate to each other about and really come together over?
Yeah, definitely. So I know for a fact, well, I was the first one to get like injured, but then I came back, and it was actually, I want to say like maybe the first or second day that I got back, that's when Mike got hurt. So, I was kind of talking to him through some things, and through it all, we kind of just use our spirituality to just let us know like God has us at the end of the day, like it's nothing to worry about. Um, and we just stayed positive. And then I think Christian's injury came a little bit later on in the season, and we kind of talked briefly, and it was kind of the same thing. Like, look, bro, just stay positive. At the end of the day, at that point, we knew, the league is going to be here for a little minute, so go home, get your rest, and like be ready. We got tournaments coming up. We got stuff like hopefully February, March of next year, and then obviously the next season. So, bro, go home, get your rest. I know you're a great player. You proved that in camp. You proved that like the first week when you were here. So I was kind of just letting those guys know, like, let's just stay positive. They were kind of telling me through it all, just stay positive and just keep doing my thing. So we were, at the end of the day, we were representing for our teams, but we were still representing for our house. So I was really rooting for everybody in my house to really do good. And I'm gonna take back some comments I said, even though it was anonymous. I mean, I don't really care about putting out, but I mentioned Cam Hollins being overrated and just the whole mob aspect. But that's because me and Cam, like Cam was the first SlamBall player I met. We were on the plane, like riding together. So I mentioned Cam and Dak being overrated, but I wanted all those guys to be great. Like I wanted Cam to be great. And I was really coaching Cam up because Cam had like no basketball experience. He was truly just like a trampoline dunker. And I was kind of giving him pointers like, all right, look, bro, this is what you need to do in order to be great. And I'm just glad that he was able to get on the mob and with Coach Kirsch, and that really helped people show like that he's great on the trampoline. So my comments were that he was overrated because I felt like if they weren't on the mob, they would have to like create for themselves and things like that, him and Dak. But ultimately, those are two great players, and the whole 50-50 Pearl Street, we still text each other, and it's still great love.
Good to hear. And you mentioned there, we got to the stage where we realized that SlamBall was going to be around for a minute. Where do you see your position in SlamBall now? Is this something that you want to stay involved in the whatever tournaments they come out with? The press release came out earlier today, which is saying that there will be things coming. There's just an announcement waiting to happen. Obviously, there will be another season next year. That's kind of already in the books. Are these still things you want to be involved in going forward?
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason why I didn't go back to my job, because I knew this was something that I want to do. It's fun, and I tell people every day, if I could wake up, hop on a trampoline, dunk on guys, and make money doing it, why not do it? So this is definitely something that I want to be a part of. And I just remember talking to Rob like all the time mid-season, and I was letting him know like, all right, what do I need to tell my job? Like I need to tell my job something if I come back, and he was like, this is your job. So with him saying that, I was like, all right, I'm locked in, I'm bought in, and I'm gonna do everything in my power, try to stay healthy and just make sure that I'm here for the long term.
What are you doing for the league at the moment now that the season's over? We're building towards whatever comes next. What are you still involved in, or is it just you're waiting for phone calls?
At this point, I'm kind of just waiting, just constant contact with the players. I haven't really talked to anybody from the front office just because I know that they're dealing with a lot of like wrapping stuff up and things like that. So I haven't really bothered them. But honestly, I've just been in rehab, just like still doing like ankle exercises, doing stuff on my shoulder, just trying to stay fit as much as I can. So I haven't really been doing too much in regards to my involvement with the league.
Are you doing anything outside of that in terms of are you just throwing yourself full into content creation, or have you got any additional like things you're doing for money and stuff like that, or are you just like rehab and wait for the phone call?
Yeah, it's kind of just like rehab, wait for the phone call. I actually just started coaching like a middle school basketball team. So I've been doing that, just to stay around the game of basketball while I can't be on my feet. So been doing that since I got back. And yeah,
Have you shown them?
that's
Have you shown them clips? Have you been like, this is what I was doing over the summer?
Yeah, so so during my introduction, like when I was letting them know I was gonna be their coach, the last thing I said was I recently played SlamBall. I was a SlamBall player, and I asked them by raising hands like who's heard of SlamBall, and surprisingly, all their hands went up. It was like 30 of them. All their hands went up, and it caught me off guard. I'm like, first of all, I'm on the East Coast, and this was like another major problem that I had with just the league. And I know they couldn't really control it, but all the games were super super late, and it was on the West Coast time. So like even my parents and stuff back home, they were having to stay up to like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock just to watch the game. So when I saw some of the kids, like, yeah, we know what it is. And then they started describing it. I was like, oh crap, like this is crazy. Like people are actually watching it. And then I told them like I was a number one overall pick and all this stuff. They're like, no, you weren't. So I showed them videos. And I'm like, oh crap. So that was pretty cool to just, have the youngsters just, show their love for the sport and just be able to respect me now that they know that I'm a SlamBall player. So it was really cool.
That's really cool to see. And thank you for showing love to Bounce Off, and all your recall about things I've said over the season has been really kind to hear. Thank you for coming on to this episode. Thank you to anyone listening or watching. Bryce, let the people know who are here for the show where they can find you and what you've got going on next.
Hey everybody, y'all can follow me on my Instagram at _Bryce23. That's actually on all platforms, TikTok, Twitter, whatever it is. You can follow me and my girlfriend's account as well at Bryce and Kai if y'all want to. But yeah, I'll be down in Tampa, Florida if y'all ever want to link up.
I am terrified about that invitation because I'm getting dunked on regardless if you're 60% or not. Thank you very much everyone for listening. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of the offseason. We'll be back next week with another episode of Bounce Off.